A week later, I saw in my magic book that CHAR had received my letter. I opened to an illustration in which he was burning my letters. I was glad to see his image, no matter what the image was doing. After I gazed a while and ran my fingers over his shape, I turned the page and found an entry in his journal.
I've lost nothing. She never was what I thought her, so I've lost nothing. I'm only fortunate, and Kyria is blessed that she eloped before my letter reached. When I received the message from her sister, I thought it had been a ploy to make me hate Ella, and I resolved not to be taken in. For a while, I considered leaving Eortha to discover the truth. Gradually, however, I realized the truth was in my hands. The sister could have no reason to lie to me. If Ella and I had married, she would only gain. But Ella's note convinced me in the end. It was in her hand, and the last phrase about smiling at her jewels and laughing at the world was certainly her own. She charmed me as easily as she did the ogres. I never did discover why she hid after my father's wedding. She was probably avoiding a lovesick swain not wealthy enough or ancient enough to suit her. Her avoidance of me after the wedding was another trick, the meaning of which is too deep for me to fathom. But her letters were the greatest deception of all. She seemed so good-hearted, but I suppose that's the way with such women. They wouldn't be minxes if they weren't masters of artifice and fraud. How she must have laughed when I confessed my faults to her.
There was more. In addition to minx, he called me flirt, harpy, siren, enchantress, temptress, and even monster. He ended by writing,
I wish I weren't in Eortha. The silence here offers too much time for thought. 1,000 times a day I swear I never to think of her. At least I can promise never to write or speak of her again. I can force my pen and my voice to keep my word.
I endured 6 months of Hattie and Olive and Mum Olga by imagining my freedom when Lucinda released me from the curse. I didn't give up writing to CHAR. Since the new letters were never posted, I told him the truth about my life in Mum Olga's household. When Hattie told me that this earl or that duke loved her, I laughed over the absurdity of it to him. When Olive made me count her money again, he was informed. Every day, she invents new hiding places for her wealth. There are coins in the hem of her gown, coins sewn into her sash, and coins buried in the stuffing of her waist roll. With all the metal concealed about her person, she had best not set foot on a boat. When Mum Olga had me clean out the root cellar, and I found a tabby with her litter of kittens, CHAR learned of my delight. And when MANDY taught me cooking secrets, I shared them with him. I also described my future without the curse. My first act, I wrote, will be to confess that I love you. I'll beg pardon 1,000 times for causing you unhappiness, and make reparations by making you laugh 1,000 times. The night before Lucinda's reappearance, Hattie awakened me when she returned from a cotillion. She said I had to help her prepare for bed. I had never had to before, so I waited to learn her real reason.
Tonight they talked of nothing but Prince Charmant's return next month,
she began while I undressed her. I knew exactly when he was coming home, so why was my heart beating so?
They say that King Gerald is going to hold 3 royal balls to welcome him. They say the prince will pick his wife at the balls. Ouch! Be careful!
I had stabbed her with a stay. For once, it was accidental.
Mamma says if
I didn't hear anything more. Were the balls CHAR's idea? Did he really mean to find his bride there? Had he forgotten me? Could I make him remember when Lucinda freed me? Hattie dismissed me eventually, and I spent the hours until dawn imagining my release from the curse and thinking about my reunion with CHAR. I couldn't decide whether I should steal one of Mum Olga's horses and ride to Eortha to surprise him, or whether I should wait and amaze him at the balls. In the morning, I woke Mandy and tried to convince her to feign illness so she could call Lucinda immediately. But no, first we had to prepare Mum Olga's breakfast and wash all the dishes, and Mandy wouldn't use the smallest magic to speed the process. When we were through at last, Mandy and I repaired to her bedroom, and I hid as before. This time, the room didn't fill with the scent of lilacs when Lucinda arrived. From my hiding place behind the curtains, I heard a rustling noise, and then the sound of weeping.
Stop sniveling,
Mandy said. The weeping became louder, more despairing.
Oh, I can't.
The music and lilt were gone from Lucinda's voice. I heard panting as she fought to catch her breath.
But if I were still obedient,
she puffed,
I would have to stop crying just because you told me to.
More sobs.
What did I bring on those poor, innocent people? How could I have done big magic? And so carelessly.
Your gifts weren't a boon.
I'd never heard Mandy be sarcastic before.
They were dreadful, terrible,
Lucinda wailed. I wondered if her experiences had been at all like mine.
What happened?
Mandy asked, her voice kinder.
It was much worse to be obedient, but being a squirrel was bad enough. Half the time I was cold and wet, and I was always hungry. I never got a decent night's sleep because I was too cramped, curling up in knotholes. Once, an eagle carried me off. I was only saved because it flew into a violent storm and dropped me over a tree.
And when you were obedient?
I turned myself into an 8-year-old daughter of shopkeepers. I thought it was only fair to be a child, since I always bestowed obedience on infants. I suppose my parents meant well, but they insisted I eat the most awful food, and I had to go to bed before I was sleepy. My parents wouldn't let me disagree with them about anything. My father loved to read the parables aloud, and I had to listen to every word. They commanded me to think about the morals, so even my thoughts had to be obedient. And all this I suffered at the hands of good people who loved me. If anything had happened to them, I shudder to think what would have become of me.
You won't bestow any more gifts, then?
Never. I wish I could take them all back.
I stepped out from behind the curtain, even though I'd promised I wouldn't. Please, do take them back.